Childhood. This is not my autobiography. I just want to briefly talk about my experience with addiction and qualify some of my life experiences that will give everyone a good feel for where I came from in life. I grew up lower class, not even close to middle class, and was raised by a single mom. My father had left us after I was born and never came back. I believe my mom in the 80s, in the height of her career, made somewhere around $7 an hour. With that amount of substantial wealth, she was raising 3 boys by herself. There was me, I was the youngest, and my 2 older brothers, Jerry and Michael. We were all about 5 years apart, and we were not necessarily model children by any stretch of the term. But that is another story all its own. From 1st grade to 5th grade, I walked to school by myself about a mile, from Warner Road to Knox Road in Chandler, Arizona, where Knox Elementary School was located. It wasn't bad. It was actually a pretty good school. I remember that it was common for my mom to have already left for work when I'd be getting ready for school. I also remember always coming home to an empty house. My brother Michael went to school much further away than I did and had to ride the bus, so he would leave earlier and get home much later than me. My mom would typically get home around sundown, just in time to make dinner for all of us. This should give you a good perspective of the amount of idle time I had at that age. With that being said, I assure you I was in all kinds of mischief. I also had an interesting perspective on the world around me, largely because I admired my oldest brother so much. My oldest brother, Jerry, was always either in juvenile detention or in prison as I was growing up. I really looked up to him and missed him a great deal when he was gone. He really was the closest thing to a father I had the better part of my childhood. I think that added extra strain to my mom's ability to influence me, and not to mention it seemed like she was always working. My mom really didn't have spare money to buy us much, and for that matter, buy us many toys. For the most part, if I had toys, I either made them or I stole them. However, the toys that I would make would typically be pretty cool. I had bows and arrows, blowguns, I made zip guns, Chinese stars, and the list goes on. It was kind of cool that my friends had the latest and greatest toys that money could buy, but often liked playing with my homemade toys over theirs. It was really kind of interesting how that played out. With the types of things that we were playing with, I'm truly surprised sometimes how I made it through childhood with both eyes intact and all my fingers and toes still in place. I really didn't have very many friends. I didn't believe that I fit in. Most of the other kids I noticed were wearing name brand shoes and clothes. All my clothes, on the other hand, were either hand-me-downs or donated from church families or bought at a second-hand store. My shoes were never used, though. That was good. I remember being stoked about my 3 Velcro-strapped shoes that we bought from the discount store. My shoes were new, along with my socks and underwear. That was definitely a plus. I'm not trying to come off as ungrateful or anything like that. I know this time had to be incredibly tough for my mom. We were always barely scraping by, so my mom had to work as much as she possibly could, and really didn't have time and energy to keep up with 3 boys, much less a kid like me that was always looking for an angle. I think back on this from time to time and think about how difficult it was for my mom just to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table, much less be there for each one of us wholeheartedly through whatever life challenges we were going through. And that's not even accounting for the challenges she faced in dealing with the difficult personalities of each one of my brothers and myself. She certainly did it on her own. I don't recall her getting much help from anyone, friends or family. Today, my wife and I raise our 3 children as a team, and that can be very challenging at times. I honestly can't imagine how difficult it was for my mom to do it all by herself. Quick side note, I know my mom will likely read or listen to this, and I want everyone to know that a great deal of the good man I believe myself to be today has almost everything to do with my mom. And no matter how great or awful any parent is in raising their children compared to society's standards, there was always at least 2 X factors: life circumstances and how we perceive such circumstances. My mom is not to blame for any of my shortcomings. In fact, I am grateful for all the circumstances I've been handed, good and bad. Thank you, Mom.